So what we're going to be running through with you guys today is I'm going to do a very brief introduction for those of you that aren't familiar with the intent of the GSA's Entrepreneurs Club. I'm going to be talking about the opportunity for small brands because it's a very, very changing industry at the moment, all sorts of new dynamics that mean that I think right now the opportunity is really, really rife. So I want to give you a bit of an overview of everything that we see changing, and then I'm going to give an overview of the marketing fundamentals before I hand over to Anna, who's really going to give you the main meat of today's discussion, which is going to be an inspiring talk about how you can better build your own brand. And then we'll move it into interactive discussion, Q&A, and some of our top tips and takeouts. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the GSA, it's actually going to be our 35th birthday next year. So we've been in the industry for a really long time as both an industry association and professional body. And we, I'd like to say, have been leading the march in developing global best practice for all of those nearly 35 years now. So this is just an overview of the work that the GSA does, but we see ourselves as being front and centre for the development of best practice. We are the home of the Global Strategic Sourcing Standard, but more than that, we are really a community for driving thought leadership and connecting the industry together so that the industry can do more business, better business, and right now within a very different and changing sourcing ecosystem. So I love giving this slide because I think this really encapsulates exactly where the industry is now. We are actually on the edge of a cliff. And for many players in the industry, this is a huge springboard to greatness. Sadly, for some of the players in the industry, it could be a fall and a drop off the edge of the cliff if they don't actually change the ways that they are operating. So on the whole, positive message here, you know, it is actually a change. So to encapsulate that change really quite quickly, the industry has predominantly operated in the same way for the last near on 35 years, but we are in the last 3 years seen, well, actually since the pandemic, we've seen more change in the last 15 months than we've seen in the last 15 years. So really dramatic times. Ian was just with us on our contracting work stream. You know, contracts have changed, probably not changed enough, but we are certainly seeing a massive move away from the really long-term mega deal contract to much shorter, much more agile contracts with a portfolio of different suppliers. So the players are no longer just the big main service providers, but we're seeing a whole new partnering ecosystem come to the fore with opportunities for lots of different types of companies. We're moving away from the very traditional time and resource, the FTE model, and everything is now moving much more to outcome-based and shared risk and shared rewards, which is really exciting. And that actually leads to new models as well. So we're not just seeing the client and service provider arrangement, but we are seeing the introduction and a rapid increase in the number of JVs, joint ventures, joint companies, and different approaches and different models. And the skill set, I think the war on talent and the lack of skills is the biggest issue the industry faces today. And the last of that is because we're not looking for the same skills that we used to have. So we're really looking for different digital skills that are all focused around design thinking, data, and also a lot more soft skills. So and there is a huge dearth in the level and availability of skills at the moment. So bringing that all together, the pandemic has been, I daren't say these words, try and find the nice way of putting it without sounding too bullish, but it's actually not been so damaging for our industry. So even when the pandemic first hit in 2020, our industry grew by 1%. This year, our industry at the beginning of the year was predicted to grow by 4 to 5%. I think the reality is that we're going to beat that figure. So there is really strong demand for global technology and business services, and really strong demand to access new players that can bring flexibility and innovation to the table in a wholly new way. So as much as, you know, we believe there's going to be lots of work and there are new contracts being awarded to the big traditional service providers, We know that they themselves are looking to partner with lots of smaller, more entrepreneurial firms, and that the enterprise buyers are looking to contract directly with these smaller entrepreneurial firms. So in short, there's huge opportunity for new players to grow into this market. Hence, that's the reason why we launched the GSA's Entrepreneurs Club. So we launched that on the 10th of July this year. And we've launched it to help both the buyers and the smaller players learn how to do business with each other. So these are some of the bigger brands that we work with. We know these guys really, really want to partner with smaller companies, but we know they find it incredibly difficult to find the smaller companies. And we at the GSA are trying to bridge that gap and provide a platform for startups and scale-ups to find new business and to understand how to go after that new business aligned to best practice, but at the same time for enterprise buyers to be able to innovate what they do by partnering with smaller companies, and in the process obviously improve the wholly important subject of supply chain diversity by partnering with different and more diverse types of organisations. So in short, the Entrepreneurs Club is all about bringing the buyers and service providers together, helping the startups and scale-ups improve their market presence and be introduced to new brands, but at the same time to help enterprises find new partners, but understand how to bring these new partners into their ecosystems. So the next event I think we've got on, or one of the next events we've got on for the Entrepreneurs Club, is how do you change your due diligence? These companies, and I know Aviva being a prime example, really, really want to partner with new companies, but their governance and risk departments don't really, and their due diligence processes don't really let these companies in. So we are trying and coming at this from both sides of that equation. One of the things that I'm really proud that we did, and that I really want you all to familiarise yourself with, is the Sme Code of Conduct. This is looking at encouraging, a different change of behaviour for our enterprise customers when they are looking to engage with smaller companies. So that's making sure that they set really clear objectives so they're not wasting anybody's time in the process, to entering this whole partnering with a win-win mentality, to run much shorter and smaller RFP processes so it doesn't waste the time of smaller innovative players. To start working to, and that's something that I just alluded to, that the contracting work stream is now working on, is much more concise and clear contracts that make it much more tenable for these small companies to contract with bigger players. And then to actually change the governance to be more realistic for companies, and then have dedicated relationship management. So we've got a much more detailed, this is a top level view of the Code of Conduct, but we want our enterprise buyers to start behaving in these ways and responding in these ways. But at the same time, we also want our smaller companies to be fully aware that there is a code of conduct that they can actually cite and use the language in this code of conduct to present to enterprise buyers and just say, be really clear, we're small, we can't do the RFPs like this. We're small, we can't contract in this way, and see if together we can build a different level of flexibility. So briefly moving on, it's just a top level view that we think it's really important for any organisation, obviously trying to sell into our industry, to understand why customers outsource. It is a changing dynamic now. Originally, it used to be top of the list was always cost reduction. I don't think that is top of the list anymore. I think it's actually accessing skills to drive innovation, to drive digital transformation are the key reasons why companies are outsourcing right now, and to find partners that they can constantly develop and innovate with. But these other reasons are still obviously very core, and it's important that you really ascertain why customers that you're pitching to are looking for the services that you're looking to offer, and making sure you've got that really clear. So as I said, talent remains the #1 issue in sourcing today, and that's what buyers are looking for. They're constantly looking for, and we've got a whole really interesting open talent forum that we're running at the moment, which is looking at how companies can access talent in a completely different way. So if you're not familiar with that, do get involved in our open talent forum, which we're recommending and giving guidance to both service providers as to how they can tap into open talent, as well as how enterprise customers can buy their own open talent and build their own open talent programs. So yes, so it's not just the process and the expertise you bring with the direct skills that you're offering, but we've recognized and built up over the year that it's really important to have skills throughout the entire sourcing life cycle. So you do have to invest in the relationships, you do have to demonstrate process excellence and continuous improvement. All of those things are critical in managing your relationship with large enterprise customers. I think I've mentioned already that there is a move to focusing on outcomes rather than just outputs, and there needs to be increased transparency. So all of these things, I think, are, Anna's going to come on to how you build a brand, but all of these things are really important in ensuring that you're actually speaking and demonstrating the right behaviours and the right language when you're talking to enterprise customers today. So moving very quickly on to the fundamentals of marketing. Obviously, really, really important to have a very clear vision of what the business is about and what the mission of the business is, but to set very clear goals and objectives from all of the marketing activities that you're looking to undertake. So we obviously recommend creating an integrated marcoms program that's comprised of all the main tools of marketing, including PR and, of course, incredibly important, social media. And it's really, really important that you develop thought leadership and create issue ownership. So not to be too salesy, but to really align yourself to a differentiated messaging and positioning for your target audiences. So these are some of the industry hot topics that we know are going on today. Missing from this, because I created this slide a little while ago, is ESG and just how important the whole subject of ESG is today. So building your knowledge and your understanding and your communication around environmental, social and governance factors and the ethics of your business are really, really, really important in getting your brand across, in developing trust, and that to me is the most important element of what you need to do with your brand to sell into enterprise customers at the moment. And it's at that point that I am going to stop my monologue, ask if there are any questions, and hand over to Anna, who will go into much more detail about how to build a brand into today's market for our industry.
Thank you so much. Once again, hello and welcome to everyone here. I think I'll be loading my slides, but I'll just get it started. So again, I'm Anna Stella, the CEO of BBSA and an academic from the University of Strathclyde. Slide change. BBSA is a global outsource marketing agency that helps small and medium-sized companies that want to scale up their marketing and win new clients, but it actually lack the resources, the time, and the know-how to do it themselves. Slide. From the government to the banks, car companies, we have worked over the years across so many industries and geographies, and every day we work with a small, medium, and large company that actually want to win new business and communicate better. Slide. So let's go to the question of the day, which is really branding and what branding can do for your business, right? Slide. Well, in marketing, we always say that if you want to understand the difference between a good and a bad branding, you should really look into the difference between an hamster and a rat, right? But what does that really mean in practice? And how should your small to medium business approach branding? Okay, slide. So let's really start with you. coming on the left-hand side, you and your leadership team, right? And I know both you and your leadership team are very busy building the business. So the key idea behind any business is that we have your company on one side and the clients obviously on the other side. And as the leader of the company, you want to create value for your clients, and you can really visualize the value creation with this line. Now, let me correct this. So you just don't want to create value. What you really want to create is superior value, which means extra value to what the clients could do or could create if they were to do the products and the services themselves or in-house. What you also want to do is to create value that costs the client less compared to what it would have cost them if you were to build it themselves. So that's the basic equation, and that's the basic starting point for any successful business and branding. Slide. Now, if you think about what we need to do, like the behaviors that a company needs to have as part of the process of creating value, you can possibly visualize this as a sales funnel that we have in any business. And when you think of a sales funnel, what's interesting is that we tend to consider the client as a part of the funnel. So in the beginning, we had what is called the total addressable market, which is the maximum number of clients you could get. And then at the bottom of the funnel, it's all the clients your company managed to get at a specific point in time. So at this point in this funnel, you need to ask yourself a couple of questions. So first of all, how many clients are even aware that they have a need for a product and a service like ours? That's the first question. Then, talking about awareness, how many potential clients are aware that you even have a solution for that problem they have? Third question you might want to ask yourself, how many of those clients that they have a need, they are really considering you as a small business as an option? And then the final question, which is the key one, how many of those that have tried your services or products have bought you over time? Slide. So basically what we have here is a simple sell and make equation. And on the operational side, you're making products and services. And on the sales and marketing side, you're just trying to convert clients from one level of the funnel up. And now I want to quote Peter Drucker, which is known as the father of management. And he keeps saying that often strategists refer to this when they keep saying that the role of business is to create and to continue to create customers. So you are creating customers. They're not on the slide. Now, in the traditional approach to marketing, the role brands play is quite simple. We think of the products and the services in terms of having certain functional components, and the brand is very often seen, especially by small businesses, as a kind of another brick on the wall, like something layer on top on the product and service you sell. It's almost like the icing on the cake, if you will. So it's something extra that you're getting, that you're trying to give to the clients. But the key thing here is that this very simplistic definition is the word extra. It's really the concept that the brands add something extra. Slide. So if we go back to the branding being the icing on the cake, studies over time, there are so many academic studies on that, shows that the brand image that you convey lives in the minds of the customer. So when we talk about branding, company often thinks about brand identity first, So maybe they think about a logo or a name, maybe an image and what the brand means, and also what the clients kind of expect. The key thing is that we know what we promise to clients sits in their minds until it gets delivered. And that's the power of the branding. Now, branding as an image or set association, as we just described it, it's kind of a traditional approach. And there is kind of nothing wrong with that, except that as a small business, it doesn't really help to differentiate you at all, or not to differentiate you by much anymore in today's world. The problem here is that the client, and the more complex your products or service is, the more of this problem you will have, is your branding problem. So the client is the problem, slide. And the client is the problem because in a way, and this is kind of obvious, but in your customer journey, your clients pass a number of different, multiple experiences. They actually might deal with your IT, they might talk with operation, they might talk to services, then they will talk to some marketing people at some point, and they might even talk to you personally. So, and the key thing is that the client is on this journey and time makes a difference. Slide. So now that we explained the concept, where do we start from there? So the client is going through a number of experiences, even if you're a small business. Well, the company behaviors and the brand really plays a role in driving your staff behavior. Your staff needs to know. They absolutely need to understand what the brand is about so that the brand image is also correctly represented in the minds of your staff. And then they can act accordingly and conveying to the clients properly. Slides. Typical question I ask clients to ask themselves include, do clients know what your brand is about? Do clients know what we want them to do and to deliver? So in that sense, as you can see, the brand is exactly an articulation, a summary of your business strategy. But you will also need to think about the brand being something clients engage with. Questions like, does your brand motivate your clients? And above all, and I'm trying not to smile here, but do they buy what you are really saying, or they just believe you put together a mini brochure and put it on the website? And critically, you also need to ask yourself, do you know how to deliver the brand properly just in the moments where this matters? So as the brand is not really the icing, it's something inside the company, it's the cake itself. You can't really separate what you do. So it's not really an extra in that sense. Slide. So let's try to see in practice what this means to you. Yeah, you need to change, yeah. What this means to you and to your organization. So we're going to do a little exercise together, just a couple of seconds. And the first thing I would like you to do is to think of a brand as quickly as possible when I will put a very, very simple word on screen. So here is the question. When you see this word on screen, what are the first 2 or 3 brands that comes to your mind? So here is the word. Slide. Okay, so now I've done this experiment over and over, and most of you, if not really all of you, would have probably thought about Disney. It's an interesting case study. So why magical and why Disney? Because you can really apply the same in your own company. So first of all, because magical is part of the slogan of the company. Magic happens is the tagline of Disney. So job well done on that. Then we have the Magic Kingdom, right? But there is more to that. So for those of you who have been lucky enough to visit a theme park, it's really the different experience that you go through when you're there. So when you walk into a Disney theme park, the brand is not really a product. It's not even a service. It's the experience that happens over for a very prolonged period of time. In any customer experience, including your own business, there are many, many touch points. And these touch points, they cut across all your different business silos. And in the case of Disney, typical touch points could be the parking lot attendant, could be the ticketing person, it can be the operator of a little choo-choo train, and so on. So when you're there, it's like you are in your own small world and you are in a little magic bubble. And then think a second about the other side, like the vendors. They are constantly fixing and upgrading the theme park. They have to disappear into the background, as it's very, very difficult to create a magical experience when you have workers hammering in the back door. So branding here is not something static, it's the behavior of dozens and hundreds of people that occurs across this experience that you have. Slide. And this is what this webinar is really about. So this is the hard truth. Whether you are aware or not, you have a brand. Maybe it's great, maybe it's not so strong, or maybe it's underdeveloped. But ultimately, what you need to do is fix the gap between what you promise the clients, which is the brand promise, and the client's experience. So traditionally, marketing communication on branding has been really about creating that promise. It's all about creating values, expectation, and trying to deliver on that. And in that perspective, whether you are as big as Disney or small, the branding is not a vanity extra. It's not an image, it's not an outcome, and it's not the brand image. It's really part of the process of the product creation and the delivery of what you do. So it's inside the company. And on the beautiful side of branding, branding fuels innovation. It drives staff behavior, who then can deliver a better customer experience. Now, this is really a change from the way we were thinking about branding a couple of minutes ago at the beginning of the webinar, as we need to be a bit brave and step away from the concept that branding is very, very much controlled. So it's not just a visual identity, it's more than that. And of course, there is a part of marketing, of branding, that is about advertisement, placement in the media, but all of this is very controlled form of communication. Branding, and the challenge of branding is that it's internal in the organization, and it's all about engaging with the different business functions that traditionally don't even touch from the marketing perspective, such as operation, HR, and IT. So it's to merge it all together. And it's really about delivering the brand at this very touch point. So whenever the clients touch this action, there should be a clear brand experience. Slide. So Peter Drucker, let's go back to him. So I think it's the next slide, sorry. Was voted, is the father of management, as we call it, and was voted as the management thinker of the century. And had another famous saying that the customer rarely buy what the business thinks it sells them. And I lost count on how many clients they are falling into this trap. Many brands don't actually know what they are really selling. And to get to the core purpose of the brand, really what this means is to understand the core driver of your customer's behavior. So if you think of the brand purpose, why you are in business, it really starts with the deep customer insights, and then means building a business around that deep customer insights that really provide value to consumer. On a final note on that, I wanted to say that when your employees understand the purpose you're engaging, they are way, way more motivated and they do a better job. Nothing motivates as much as a deep purpose, and employees becomes productive, more engaged, and ultimately able to provide more happiness and value to clients. And this has been shown in countless academic studies. Slide. So I already quickly mentioned the importance of the customer experience and the idea of value creation. And I would like to show you this simple model because this is something small businesses are very likely to struggle. It's a 3E model. So these are what really can differentiate your business. So efficiency, effectiveness, and experience. So the idea is that you need them all to be successful, but increasingly is the experience part that can really differentiate a small business. So it's increasingly difficult to have an efficiency advantage or even an effectiveness advantage over time. So as you can see, the only one missing really is experience. And just to give you an idea of how we value things and how we perceive the quality or beauty or whatever it might be, have a look at this guy here, slide. So this guy is Joshua Bell, and it's a very, very famous violinist. And in this image, he's playing a Stradivari, very old Stradivari, that costed him $3.5 million, something like that. He bought the Stradivari himself, and here is embossed in the Symphony Hall. Now, picture an auditorium packed with 1,000 people. And even the cheap seat went for about $100 seat. And he's playing some of the most complex music, some Bach, Chopin, and the audience is hushed. Actually, Joshua Bell is very particular about the audience being super quiet. And at the end of the performance, the whole auditorium erupts into an applause. But then something happens. The next day, the Washington Post decided to run an experiment. So they asked themselves, well, what would happen if we took the same product, if you will, Joshua Bell, and if we put him in a different context? So what they did, they went into a metro station in Washington, D.C. that has wonderful acoustic. And this time they dressed Joshua as a busker, just a musician on the street trying to earn some money. Key thing to deliver the same product is playing with the same Stradivari and is playing exactly the same set. And they decided to wait for about 1,000 people to pass through the hall. So same amount of people. This is the morning during the week. And you could imagine what happened, right? A big crowd gathered, everybody was hushed, people mesmerized, they broke into big applause at the end, and everyone was happy, right? Next slide. Not quite. So on the left, you can see what there is a gift and you can see what happened. As you saw, not much really happened at all. Few people stopped, few people gave money. Actually, he made the $32.17, which means people gave him pennies for his performance. And the real reason why he only made $32 in the first place is because one woman gave him $20. She was obviously interviewed like many other people, and they asked, why did you give him $20? And she said, I think it was Joshua Bell, and I didn't know he had to do this to make money. So it was both a very funny and sad moment. But now let's ask ourselves, what was really different in this situation? Because the product was the same, right? But in reality, everything was different. First of all, the audience maybe wasn't right. They wouldn't have paid the money in the first place. It wasn't the right time. They weren't on the right state of mind. They probably weren't ready. They weren't expecting, and they didn't even maybe want to hear this music. And they couldn't judge without the branding, without the context, without the conductor, without the stage, the auditorium. and also without the advertising. Last point is the ticket. The ticket price they paid, the $100 minimum, in the first place, also led them to think they liked the piece more. So since the product was the same, it's the entire experience that's different between the Boston Symphony Hall and the metro station. And this is what the experience is about. So it's not just about the product, right? Slide. Yeah. As we think about how do we go about designing experiences as a way of differentiating our brands, what you need to do is really to map the various touch points of your organization against those different moments that really matter in the customer journey. So if you think about your organizational chart and all the various silos that you have, and if you can really visualize your clients by himself, who's cutting across the different silos over time, and who's actually touching all these different touch points. So the goal here is really for you to think about, well, how do I actually go from maybe a generic or poor experience to creating one that is meaningful, rich, and probably on brand? Second, how do I express the brand experientially? Can I do that with my line of work? And from an organizational standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, and from the alignment standpoint, how do I get up organizationally to allow me to provide this customer experience? How can I think about my staff being in this equation? And how do I go and create brand practices and brand engagement at the level so that my staff knows what to deliver, and they do this with a full conviction, maybe even with passion, so that the experience they give is authentic for the clients. And then this very last slide is your takeaway or your homework for today. No, it's the previous one. It's a previous one. It's a practical seven-step, one before, yeah. It's a practical seven-step approach. It's a checklist with things that you kind of need to figure out. So, and they really go from the bottom to the top here. So first one, you need to define your brand purpose. Second, map the customer journey. Third one, create matching touch points that need obviously to be on brand. So you just work on the touch points. You don't work on everything, just where the client sees stuff or talks to people. The fourth, understand what really are the moments that matter for clients and brand them. Fifth one, create the brand leadership and alignment. Then you need to create the brand practices so that there could be staff engagement. And the last one, which is the one no one likes, it's really about defining the metrics so that you can really judge your own branding success. And it's as simple as that, right? So I'll pass it over to Carrie again.
Excellent, thank you, Anna. Appreciate that. I really love the example of the Joshua Bell experiment. I hadn't heard of that one before, but that really does bring it to life. That you know, it is the experience rather than just the product that you're actually offering. So I'm going to reshare slides just to close things down from my perspective. But whilst I do that, and obviously because I said to you I can't concentrate on both things at once, are there any questions from what you've seen presented by Anna? You can either put a hand up or put a comment in the chat. Right, so I'll have to ask you, Abby, to monitor any chat because I can't see it now that I'm sharing slides again. But this is where we kind of left off, and I've just got a couple of last minute's final slides that I think will hopefully close this down. So our advice is, and Anna, please do chip in with me on this as we go through. So I know there's a couple of guys from South Africa on the call there. I don't know whether you're trying to sell into the UK marketplace, but our advice certainly is if you do want to sell in to a territory, it really does help if you've got boots on the ground in that territory. It doesn't have to be an office, it doesn't have to be full-time employees, but it does need to be some form of presence. That makes a huge difference in building trust with prospective clients, you know, so they know that they've got somebody to turn to as a sounding board when they're doing business with you if you're based predominantly overseas. Next piece of advice is if you're trying to sell into new companies, case studies are worth their weight in gold. Now, case studies aren't always easy to get. It's very, very difficult to get companies willing to talk about the fantastic work that you've done for them because they see that as some form of giving away of competitive intelligence. So sometimes you do need to actually discount, sadly, the work that you do, but it is worth contemplating discounting the work that you do in order to actually be able to get a reference and case study behind you. So think about that. Think about putting skin in the game. So there is a strong move to adopting risk and reward. You need to look at how your business could potentially offer a focus on outcomes rather than just outputs, and a shared risk and reward approach. Sounds absolutely ridiculous, and this is something that happens and I see far too frequently is the nonsense that goes on in organisations' marketing collaterals. So yeah, you spend a complete fortune and thinking behind the brand and the brand experience, and then you go and put a piece of marketing or a campaign together that doesn't make a great deal of sense, and it's not in good English. Especially see that a lot from some of our international members. It's really, really worth making sure that the translation is properly done, so that the English is grammatically perfect, as well as obviously being aligned to ethics and thought leadership, which are really, really key messages in marketing. And then, you know, obviously invest in the relationship. I think I put that in earlier on. You know, they don't just want to buy something off you. They want to develop a partnership. And there's huge opportunities of developing really long-lasting partnerships if you really invest in the relationship and invest the time to understand what the customer really wants over a much longer period of time. And of course, we would say this, we are the Global Sourcing Association, but really important to align yourself to industry best practice. So we do recommend that organisations that are selling into our enterprise clients really understand the strategic life cycle and the strategic sourcing life cycle, so that they can ensure that they align with those clients and with those client expectations throughout the life cycle of their arrangement with the clients. It's not just the selling piece. It is the entire relationship management piece that is oh so important and is what actually delivers success at the end of the day. So our old research, and I'm pretty certain it's still pretty accurate, but this is pre-pandemic and really looking at the bigger relationships. In 85% of cases when outsourcing arrangements fail, they fail due to poor relationship management. And I think that works just as much for small companies as it does for these big, you know, these big players. So really align to best practice and invest in the relationship is very key.
Sorry, Kerry, Rod Jones would like to ask you a question.
Rod, hi Rod from South Africa, how are you doing?
Wait a minute, there we go. Hi Kerry and hi Anna and team. Really great insights and very valuable, in fact, from, as you quite rightly said, we're looking to source business from the UK. Kerry, the question I have is, in crafting the GBS BPO value proposition into the UK, how important, if at all, is impact sourcing?
I would like to give a much more positive answer, but it's not important enough yet. So it is a campaign that we're pushing over here. We are aligned with BPESA and the IAOP and the work that we're trying to do across the Global Technology and Business Services Council to ensure that there is one clear definition of impact sourcing, and that we as global associations are working to that one global definition, and that we are trying to collate collate understanding and metrics as to who really is doing impact sourcing and what the benefits of impact sourcing is. At the moment, it's too embryonic. Certainly here in the UK, I think there's much better stats for impact sourcing and the benefits it delivers in the United States. I would like to say I'm going to see it go up the agenda. So we've got this metric called ESG. And that is huge for the regulated financial services industry. So if I'm correct in my stats, and Paul Bowen will probably know much better, so do chip in if I got it wrong, Paul, is up to 20% of the brand of the company's value could be lost due to not getting ESG metrics correct. So we're talking about huge amounts of money here. So that obviously then starts looking at environmental. That's been around for a long time. We've done a lot of work on, first single-use plastics in the supply chain, and looking at the, all of the different players and modern slavery and all of those sort of things, carbon footprints in the supply chain. But the social piece is much newer for us and is increasing in provenance. So the social piece will include impact sourcing, absolutely includes supply chain diversity. That's really growing at the moment, but we're not where it should be, Rod. But don't not let it be a point of differentiation because that's what you're using. But it'll be really difficult for that to be your main purpose right now. If that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. Thanks, very clear.
Okay, so in terms of just going back to the last few slides, key messages is don't be too salesy, don't oversell. Nobody likes being sold to, so that's why we sort of say it's really important to have your differentiated messaging and to be aligned with thought leadership and create issue ownership rather than the constant sale. But you do need to be forceful. You need to carry on following up with any sales leads that you've got and use the SME industry code of conduct to get an answer. We have seen tragically companies go out of business because they've been kept dangling by big companies saying, haven't made a decision yet, don't know, yeah, there's still an opportunity, and they spend so much time chasing these clients and having follow-up calls that actually have been a complete waste of their time. And if they'd actually focused their energies on a different customer, they'd still be in business today. So that's why we've got this two-pronged approach to both the enterprise customers and the service providers, small startups. So don't ever lie, don't ever make up you've got experience that you haven't got, because you will get caught out. So be completely open and honest and transparent with the truth. That also happens far too frequently. And when you are caught out, it is really damaging. And don't tell the client what they want. Listen and ask the client what they want. Don't go in and tell them, for example, Rod, you need impact sourcing. They won't like that. They want to tell you what they want, and they want to come to their own decision of what would be valuable rather than being told. Never diss the competition. That is the major turn-off, I think, in business. And as I've said a million times, don't neglect the relationship over the service level agreements that you're trying to achieve. I also think it's really important, and probably would be my word of advice as being the best bang for your buck in terms of marketing spend, and that is to actually develop a really strong influencer strategy. So third-party endorsement is worth its weight in gold, and whether that's from your customers or whether that's from industry influencers, other analysts, other associations, from the press, from the media. These sort of forums are quite often free of charge, free in many ways, or low cost. And actually having that third-party endorsement really does make you stand out and reinforce you. So one of the things that we've got at the GSA is the GSA partner platform. And I'll quickly come on to that. So this is something that we've developed with an organisation in the United States, a company called Clutch. And basically, if you think of Booking.com, which is obviously the booking system for the hotel industry, where all the hotels are rated by the guests that have stayed in them, it's the same version as that, but for service providers, tech companies, design agencies, for our industry. So it's the first sort of platform that, and we're massively promoting this to our enterprise buyers as soon as we've got more service providers and partners on board. It's a free forum. It is asking you to put your service line into the platform and invite your customers to rate you, so that other companies can find proven companies in our space and see who's done business with them. And obviously, you know, that is the best way of understanding that you're working with a proven company. So this is what it actually looks like. This is the Global Sourcing Association Partner Platform, and this is the top level overview of some companies that are actually in it that have got really, really good scores from their customers. So here we've got Scale Focus. It's still got 5 points from 17 companies, all bona fide customers reviewing the real work that these organisations have done. So if you weren't familiar with the partner platform, please do check it out on the GSA website and use it as an opportunity to raise your own profile into the industry. Right, we are really running out of time. So we did want to have a bit more of a discussion on what were the top tips. So I've already given you a couple of mine, and that is to use third parties as influencers for sure. And I guess one tip that I've not mentioned before, but is to be much more selective about, you know, which RFPs you're actually going for, and check that the RFP is really, really right for you. I'm going to stop sharing and now invite Anna back in. Anna, what would be your top tip for how to deliver the best bang for your marketing buck?
My top tip in terms of the marketing, first of all, make sure you understand the clients and the market you're in. It's not a coincidence that the market as a word is in the middle of marketing. Very often, as you just mentioned, in the case of RFPs, clients are spending a lot of time with the wrong clients, which is like the capital sin of marketing. So if you're totally going out like a waste. So the first thing is a market research. So understanding the clients, what they want. And the second one, probably it's about playing with more than one audience at the same time. Don't get obsessed by large clients. BBSA, we are a marketing agency, so we have been into the process of going from 0, 1 to 30 ourselves. If you're very small, you're not going to win the contract. That's probably a fact of life. If your business if you've been in business for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, it's very unlikely you will clear the due diligence that is required to go into the big contracts. However, this is a different stage of business. So try to play accordingly to what you can really achieve, and decide before you do anything if you can really win. Even before doing an RFP, just spend time deciding, can I win this really? Or am I just going to spend 1 week just doing that and with no results at all, because I'm not in the right stage of my business and I don't have the right expertise. And then finally, just linking back to the RFP, which is a key concept here for today, it's probably about creating a theme around your RFP. So just try to stick to your narrative. So if you are approaching the project from one angle and you think your angle is strong enough, just keep building on the narrative around that. Don't just keep adding random words to show that you can do everything. Just make your case from your strong standpoints, because that's probably the best way for you to win. Last one on marketing in general, but also RFPs from my perspective. What I've seen working extremely well in large organizations is to have just 1 or 2 members of staff doing them. So find someone in the company that likes, not loves, likes doing them, but it's a kind of activity that with times it becomes routine and it gets easier. So just by selecting one person in the team that can do them well, you will actually make the process easier and possibly more successful. Yeah. And then on the top of that, of course, it's about getting all the other marketing collaterals. But I would say when you are ready to apply for the RFP, the game is done, because probably they already checked you, and probably it's a bit late for really doing drastic marketing activities that can really change everything. So marketing should be done. You should do marketing every day and try to do good marketing as well.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Right, Paul, I'm going to put you on the spot. I said I was going to put you on the spot as an enterprise buyer. What's your best tip or piece of advice, or what is your major bugbear? You know, it can go from either way of, you know, when you have small businesses trying to sell into you.
My top tip would be authentic. And what I mean by that is I've seen organizations bring people in you can tell they're not permanent employees. You can tell they're not part of the culture. You can tell they don't carry that customer experience you were talking about with Disney earlier on. They stand out like a sore thumb, and they bring them in to showcase a competency they don't necessarily have in their armory. And it's a bit along the lines of what you were talking about earlier, Kerry, around that sort of honesty and don't tell lies. You're trying to create an impression of a product or a service that you can create, but you don't have the competency or experience in it. And it once you start probing on those sort of things and you can cut through it just, you know, the presentation, the engagement soon falls apart. So you know, my counsel on just to build on what you've already said, Kerry, because there's a lot of good stuff in there already. It's just to be authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Paul. And just as an interest, are you how much engagement are you doing with smaller players yourself at the moment, or are you still finding it difficult to get some of these companies through the due diligence?
The hardest part is finding them in the first place. I think you sort of touched on that earlier, and you know, where we get the best introductions is through the affiliates. It's through recommendations. It's through connections and relationships. It's easy to find the big ones. You go to the research analyst and they put the 10 in front of you could be talking to. But it's obviously been difficult for everybody in the last couple of years to because of that physical divide where we're not meeting up and bumping into one another at conferences, at RFPs, or whatever those engagements are. You know, it's just made it that little bit harder. So we, you know, I'm keen we do more. We do have a good track record in it, but that's part of the attractions coming to this session today.
Thank you, appreciate that. Right, I know we're actually at time. I know it's super sunny outside, and I'm absolutely amazed that you have actually not decided to go and drink beer in your gardens or whatever. So thank you very much for joining. Are there any final questions before we wrap, or are we ready to go and have some refreshments? I take it we're ready for some refreshments. I certainly am. So was that you putting your hand up, or was that you waving goodbye, Rod?
Just to say, really great content, really appreciated. It was extremely valuable, and look forward to the next session because I've learned a great deal this evening, and compliments to both you and to Anna for her content. It was really great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for joining. Right, so thank you, Anna. Really appreciate your presentation, and yeah, let's all stay in touch. Thank you very much, and enjoy what's left of the sun. Thank you.